Alright, hello everyone, my name is Shep, welcome back to the Butcher's Circus. Today we're gonna be watching a very exciting match between myself and Nani. So you might be looking at this immediately and thinking, exciting match? Shep, you're playing the Immortal Musketeer, this is probably the least exciting team in the Butcher's Circus. It just tries to play until round 40 and defend as defensively as possible. And while that might be true, we're gonna have a very exciting match regardless, because it's not gonna go exactly my way and it's also not gonna go exactly Nani's way, so just stick around and let's watch to the end. So we are playing with the Immortal Musketeer against something that's a little bit weird. It's like a stress team, but it also has a lot of collateral damage between having a Highwayman and having a Crusader and an Abomination. So they're going to be able to do a lot of damage on my side, which I obviously don't like. And they also have an Antiquarian in the back to get the death blows and also to get the regen. So if you haven't seen the Immortal Musketeer team before, basically the idea behind it is that you have a Flagellant that doesn't have Punish or Reign of Sorrows, and instead just brings Suffer and Reclaim, and is very difficult to kill, and also makes the rest of his team very difficult to kill, because they all have defensive trinkets, lots of defensive abilities, lots of defensive stuff. So here I just go for the ranging shot, because not only does it heal strength, which doesn't really matter too much at this point, it's also going to give me accuracy, which is what I want. With this team, you kind of only have one offensive ability, which is the Beast Spile, and especially since my opponent went Pork of Flight, going game shot here, we really wouldn't accomplish too much. So we're perfectly okay here. So they're gonna transform first and go for the slam, so keep in mind that when you play a team like this, you're always going for the long game, so if they're using their transformations early, by round 10 they probably won't have any transformations left. So you have to keep that in mind when you are playing this team. I will also say that I'm not the most experienced player with this team. There's definitely people that are a lot better at it than me. There's people that played 3 hours every single day. That might only get you 3 matches with 3 hours of Immortal Musketeer, unironically, but you know, there's people that play this for not for a living, but you know, it's what they spend their free time on, and I definitely respect them. This is a Sigma grind set kind of team. You have to be kind of insane to play this. So I was definitely thinking what are the best moves, because at this point there's a few things that I don't want to have happen. I don't want to have Zealous just consistently undermine my efforts to keep my Flagellant and my Man-at-Arms alive, so I could potentially drop a guard, and then they wouldn't be able to break my Flagellant's defenses, right? But between Zealous and the Grape Shot and the Festering Vapor, this isn't really the best matchup for the Immortal Musketeer if you think about it. So they drop a Ragio. It doesn't really hit us for that much, but I have already used my Musketeer action, so I will not be able to heal close to death's door. I will have to use my Flagellant if I want to do that. I tried to go for a stress heal and a little bit more accuracy, in case, you know, so I could clear the stress and so I could give myself a bit more accuracy if they do try to hit into the riposte. So they drop a Duelist Advance here that is going to let me heal all the other characters up, and here I can take a risk if I want to. I could drop a Suffer onto the Man-at-Arms, basically just have a 30% chance of dying, but yeah, if it was no finisher then maybe I would have that happen, but since there's a finisher on my opponent's side, I'm not going to do that. So I have enough accuracy for the Exsanguinate to go for it on the A-bomb, and what that would have allowed me would be to get a lot of pressure going on their side, make their Abomination take a few rounds to you know, just heal, make the Antiquarian have to go for Rejuvenating Vapors, but sadly I get the Curse of the Spiked Bat, so I do not actually apply that bleed from the Exsanguinate, so the Abomination is perfectly fine. You know, that's kind of the sacrifice you have to take playing with a team like this. You definitely need the defensive trinkets on the Flagellant. You're not even going to run Punish or Reign of Sorrows. There's really no point in bringing Spiked Bat. But oh well, here we're gonna get slammed again, pushed to the back again, which is quite annoying, but it is not the end of the world. This is still a very defensive team. We still have the Musketeer heal, which is quite good with that Tincture of Iodine. I have not mentioned the trinkets, so I will explain the trinkets if you aren't quite aware of their idea. So Tincture of Iodine is basically a trinket that you always have to take on support Musketeer, because it lets you clear blights. You don't actually clear blights by default like the Arbalest clears bleeds. You actually need the trinket for it. So it does that. It gives you plus 33% healing skills, gives you minus stress taken, and on the character that you heal, it also gives them healing received, which is really freaking good, and it also gives them a little bit of blight resistance, which shouldn't matter most of the time, but you know, it's there. So At this point, I'm actually in a bit of a rough spot here because I do not have regen on my Abomination. I haven't applied it yet, and not only that, I've already used my Abomination action. So here my opponent can go for that Festering Vapors and potentially just get the death blow, but thankfully for us, that is not what happens. This is a very big thankfully, this could have been disastrous. Most of the time, if you lose a character with this team, you lose the match. So you really don't want to let that happen. I may have misplayed somewhere to let this Abomination go down to 0. Once again, I am not the most familiar with these 4 characters, and it's not really my playstyle to be this defensive. I can play defensively from time to time, but this defensively, you really have to like it to actually play something like this. So here I just go for a Rage on the Abomination. I was hoping that I could do a lot of damage and maybe get some counter pressure going. In hindsight, probably would have been better to just heal myself, get some HP, because since I didn't apply the Exsanguinate before on their A-bomb, they can just hit me now for free, and my Abomination is down to 0 HP. Now, it's not the end of the world because I can heal with the Musketeer. She has plus healing skills, so I should be able to heal for a lot, right? No, I heal for 10, which is the absolute minimum. Well, that's not too good, is it? No, it's really not. The Abomination here is in a really rough spot, and even though I can guard, it doesn't really accomplish anything because there's Grape Shot and there's Festering Vapors. Maybe Festering Vapors could deal 0 damage with the guard to give myself some protection, so that's what I'm gonna try doing here, but it is risky because my Abomination has already suffered 1 Death Sword check from the previous Festering Vapors, so it is definitely a complicated situation to be in. Thankfully, the Highman doesn't have finisher, so they don't have a confirmed kill shot here. But they go for it, they get a crit, and my Flagellant is at quite a rough spot, so is my Man-at-Arms. So in this situation, Tiger Finger Man, which is the person that plays this 3 hours a day, would probably surrender, but I just decided, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna keep going. And thank goodness I kept going, because this is gonna end up being quite an exciting match. So here comes the Festering Vapors, 50-50 of getting a death blow on my Man-at-Arms, by the way. Round 4, the team is just getting demolished here. It is definitely a horrible matchup for it, but even then, it's still really rough seeing a team that most of the time can put the opponent in such a hopeless situation get demolished this easily, as you'd see. And like, a lot of teams would have a pretty easy matchup against what my opponent is doing, something that did stress with like the Flagellant with Train of Sorrows would just completely demolish what they have. But this team just really needs to have the perfect defense. If you cannot keep your defense up, you're just gonna lose every single time. So yeah, the Highman finally goes Afflicted, so we get the first Affliction by round 5, which is honestly kind of early for this team. But yeah, he gets a first act out doing some stress at the other characters, which isn't too bad. So here I drop a Bellow, just gonna force the Abomination to de-transform. I'm not sure how many transformations they had left at this point, but it is an okay thing here. They're also gonna daze themselves, so that's nice. Keep in mind that I do have aimed shots to go for the death blow onto the enemy Highman, so I was definitely thinking about that at this point. I will just try to keep my Man-at-Arms and my Flagellant alive through the Flagellant heals. I definitely have to expend them, and then I need to take an opponent action out. The reason that this team really sucks once the Abomination or any character is gone is because if you lose the Abomination, you lose your biggest amount of stress output, blight output. But it's just, with him gone, the only offensive abilities you have are Bellow and Aim Shot. It's really not a lot. And Exsanguinate, I guess, but you get very limited uses of that. So yeah, here I have to drop a Redeem, and you might have noticed that I healed for 27 there. It's because the Man-at-Arms had Healing Received. That buff does actually last for 3 rounds, so the Healing Received is very, very helpful. And I healed myself so much on the Flagellant because he has Cult of Absolution and Last Breath Color. Last Breath Color actually gives you plus 30% healing received when you're below 20% max HP, so it is definitely a nice trinket to have here, and it is gonna keep my Flagellant alive for way longer than he would be otherwise. So yeah, at the start of next round, I will have an aimed shot on my opponent since they decided not to go for a Crusader heal, or since their action was expanded somehow already, I wasn't quite sure, but yeah. If I do not get this death blow here, I will once again be in a very rough spot. I was just looking for a reason not to surrender, honestly, and at least the Crusader doesn't have a virtue chance, so he goes selfish here. This entire match was really me looking for a reason not to surrender, because Going for that death row there and failing it is going to make things even more complicated for me, because there's going to be more rejuvenating vapors. Aim shot is probably not going to be a death row anytime soon. Here comes more grape shot blast. I'm actually taking a surprising amount of stress on my frontliners. Sadly, ranging shot only cures 12 stress, and here we're not really capable of using it. We have to use our musketeer for other actions, which is definitely what you don't want. If you lose one of your defensive characters, or if you lose one of your characters for the defense, even if it's just a riposte that kind of forces your opponent not to hit into it, your characters will be somewhat overloaded in the amount of actions that they have to do, and that is definitely quite rough. So here comes another slam, gets the push once again. That Abomination doesn't even have a move chance, and he's gotten every single push onto my flagellant. It's just outrageous. It's not the end of the world, because I wasn't even gonna go Punisher anyway, but it's still rough. My Abomination Corpse is gonna go away soon as well, so they're gonna be able to hit every single character with the grape shot, and they're gonna be able to hit two characters with their Zealous and the Rake if they want to. So things are only gonna get worse at this point. The Antiquarian does also have a Virtue chance, but she isn't quite at Affliction range yet. She probably has to eat another 2 Velos. So I actually dodge a Zealous here somehow. I guess Selfish is -5 accuracy, so that does make a difference. And here I have a few choices. I was thinking, I could shoot the Hireman again. That could deal some stress, and then the Bell is gonna do more stress. Maybe an act out after he gets hit could do some stress here, and that's just what I end up going for. Like, if I just keep playing defensive here and don't get at least one kill, there's no way I'd be able to win. So I just have to be aggressive here, hope for something, right? Maybe one character hits another, maybe the act outs do enough stress, maybe there's a pass, after a pass even more stress, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. I'm hoping for the 3 afflictions that I've gotten on my opponent's side to just do something and potentially give me a winning shot here. So I do 18 stress on the Bell, which is a lot. That is definitely a lot of stress. That's what you get for running Grim Bandana and Monkey Spot together. You become very, very susceptible to stress moves. So that is something that is at least helping me out a little bit. So here the Abomination actually moves back, giving my opponent a chance to go V-Spile, which is definitely what they should have done, but they didn't. If they dropped the V-Spile there, that would have been more DOT, more stress onto both characters that really don't want to be getting hit with V-Spiles, and then they would also have a riposte on that Abomination, which probably wouldn't change too much, but I felt like that's what they should have gone for. They shouldn't really keep trying to break the guard. It's probably not going to accomplish too much, because even if I guard, they just have Zealous and Grape Shot and Festering Vapors, and even with 40% protection, unless there's some heavy debuffs on the Antiquarian, she will still do damage to your characters. So here the Hireman hits himself at the store despite the regen, so that's probably why you should have gone for the Hireman action first. That was a very, very clutch self-hit from that Hireman there, dealing just enough damage to counter that to counter that regen takes. But here I just don't take advantage of it, and I go for a Bleed with the Exsanguinate instead, because if there's no debuffs on the enemy Antiquarian, if she goes for Festering Vapors and kills my Flagellant here, it's definitely over. So I cannot afford that. So I just decide to keep going here and eat a double Grape Shot crit, because there is justice in this world, right? It's not too great, but this time we did apply the Exsanguinate Bleed, or, you know, it's literally impossible not to apply the Exsanguinate Bleed, and the Abomination is ticking down to 0, which is really quite good for me. So the Musketeer is going to go Hopeless, which isn't great. Flagellant has gone Afflicted as well. Usually the Flagellant doesn't go Afflicted in this team. It's really, really difficult to make him go Afflicted. But between Grape Shot, Zealous, and the transformations, it is possible. It usually doesn't go Afflicted because there's ranging shots, and there's a Gauntlet of Absolution, obviously, and there's Suffer. Suffer actually makes you take 40% less stress, and if you stack that with Gauntlet of Absolution, you basically take 0 stress. But I haven't been able to use Suffer. I've just had to use the other abilities, the Reclaim and the Exsanguinates and all that stuff. So here that Abomination is actually dead, even if my opponent drops the regen at this point, so I am definitely not dropping a Bellow here. Dropping a Bellow here would possibly be the worst decision you could make. Maybe not the exact worst, passing would be worse, I believe, because at least if you drop a Bell you would afflict the Antiquarian, but you would also save the Abomination, so it would definitely not be worth it. I feel like my opponent definitely wasted their Abomination's life here. They could have gone for a heal on him, and then they could have self-healed with an Absolution, kept the Abomination alive, but now he's just gone. I think what my opponent did was just fail to consider that the Abomination stresses himself out when he's in transformation mode, so between dropping to death's door, taking 5 stress, and then having another 12 drop on them just took him out completely. So that is it for that little Abomination. He is completely gone. So now I am at this door, so I just have to heal myself here, but you do remember that I just got afflicted with the Selfish, which makes me move forward with the Musketeer, of course. Literally oh no, I actually went Hopeless. Yeah, Hopeless is the move Affliction, so literally the worst thing that could have happened here. Moving forward. No, even passing probably would have been better, because then I would stay in position 3, right? It's just outrageous. Completely outrageous how that happens. And if I healed myself there, I would be perfectly fine. I would heal a Blight, I could probably get a big heal for like 12 or so. But no, now the Musketeer is just gone. That's my final action. I didn't even try moving back because I was probably just gonna die anyway between a Grape Shot and the Festering Vapor. So I just dropped a ranging shot to heal a bit of stress and give my Bellows some accuracy, because my opponent does have some nice dodge on their side, and the match is looking really close at this point. This is not how Immortal Musketeer teams matches go. Usually after you lose a character, it's absolutely GG, but in this situation, it's looking kind of close. It's looking like I have a chance at this point. My opponent still has a lot of regen, but they have a lot of DOT on their characters. So once again, my only offensive move is Bellow, and I have to do about 10 Bellows to that Antiquarian to take her out. And if you're looking at this, if you're a betting man, who would you bet on? A man-at-arms that has to bellow about 10 times to make the Antiquarian just have a heart attack. She still has regen, by the way. Regen, Crusader heals. Or would you bet on the characters that, you know, still have a character advantage, have the regen, and have infinite heals and more than just one offensive ability? And it's an offensive ability that doesn't even do any sort of damage, so it can't crit, it can't counter heals. It just does a bit of stress and applies debuff, so that's literally all I have, and I don't even have a Bellow setup. I have an anti-stun setup, and there isn't even stuns on my opponent's side. Well, there was one with the Abomination, but he's gone, so he didn't even try to use it. So yeah, here the Higher Man goes for an act out, does a bit of stress, so the stress is piling up surprisingly quickly onto that Antiquarian, and here comes the Grape Shot. My Flagellant is going to be brought down to 0 HP, I still have minus heals, and here my idea was, well, I can drop an Exsanguinate if I want, I still have a Redeem. I want to keep my Exsanguinate for when a character has regen, and for when I can drop them down to 0 with the bleed and get a heart attack on them at the same time. And I just look at this and I think, okay, this might be my opportunity. I'm gonna drop an Exsanguinate here on the Crusader. He's gonna take a decent amount of bleed. Look at that. He's taking 9 bleed and he's at 9 HP. So this might be the perfect opportunity. There's gonna be another regen here probably, but the Antiquarian actually passes. So at this point, between the Bellow and the Crusader just acting, he will die unless the Antiquarian drops a regen or unless there's extra stress from some sort of act out. So the Crusader does stress to the other characters, but the Higher Man does stress back, sadly, so the Crusader will have a heart attack here, which isn't good for me at this point, because now after a heart attack he can just heal and he'll be okay, he'll have heart attack recovery and he'll be difficult to stress out. So that Exsanguinate did not really give me the win. What does give me the win though is the Higher Man hitting himself again at Death's Door. I mean, not at this door, he hit himself to Death's Door once again, so an oversight from Nani with that irrational Higher Man, just hitting himself unbelievably for a second time and giving me a clutch chance of winning the match. Not a match win for sure, it's not a match win yet, but the Higher Man goes out and the Crusader takes a bit of stress as well. The Crusader says no, I mean the Antiquarian says no to the heal, which means that a Bellow will now be a kill onto this Crusader because the Crusader took extra stress from the Higher Man. Here the Antiquarian does a little more onto the Crusader, he's at 199 stress. Here comes the crit, heals just a little bit, but a Bellow will still be a kill here. So I will definitely go for the Bellow. I'm gonna go for it, I'm at 197 stress myself. But of course, I missed the 84% hit chance. You look at me slowly moving the mouse over to the accuracy. My mouse going to the left and to the right, up and down, left and right. I don't even know how to react to it. Just looking at that exotic snuff and thinking to myself, what a worthless piece of crap trinket. So here I have a few choices if I still want to win this. I definitely can't use my redeem just yet. If I use my redeem, my man at arms has a heart attack and then he's dead. And I won't have my big redeem heal. I want him to have heart attack recovery. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna suffer, and the suffer is gonna give me death blow resistance. So if they go for the festering vapors now, not only do they have a chance of dealing 0 damage, they would also have a very low chance of getting the death blow, because between Last Breath Call, which gives you 12% death blow res, and the suffer, you get a lot of death blow res onto this flagellant, so you can actually survive those. So here I'm gonna go for the Bell first, which is definitely greedy, but it's what I have to go for. The reason I really want to go for it is because the Antiquarian went irrational. She only has festering vapors, and with Bellow debuffs plus protection, she might actually not do damage on that festering. So she has to go rejuvenating now, or else the Crusader will probably die soon. And she does indeed do that. So now I have a choice. Either I go for another suffer or I drop a reclaim. So here it's definitely tricky on what you want to do. You definitely want to give yourself death blow resistance, but dropping reclaims on the man at arms here is going to be really helpful, because after a heart attack I'll still have HP. After the flagellant dies, potentially. So that's kind of what I want to do here. I want to make sure that the flagellant is as supportive to this man at arms as he can possibly be. So here the Crusader actually passes, which really helps me out. It makes sure that the flagellant stays alive for at least one more action, but I'm gonna go for the Bell first, hopefully apply another debuff, and thankfully I do. I don't have debuff trinkets, I don't have accuracy trinkets, but I'm still applying every debuff on this Antiquarian, even though she has the Tears of the Lost. Each one of them was a 50-50. So she's gonna go for a Festering Vapors, doesn't get the death once again, and this time does cause a heart attack onto my man at arms, and this is the time where you use that redeem, because after I redeem, the man at arms will have heart attack recovery, and he will be very, very difficult to stress out between the bolster and the numbing instance. So sadly, the flagellant doesn't act out to do a little bit of stress to the man at arms while he was still at death's door. So it's not going to be quite as effective as I wish it would be, but it's not the end of the world. So here the Antiquarian has a heart attack herself because of an act out, which is really freaking good. That means she's going to have less damage output. It means she's going to stay alive for. Means she's going to do less damage, and my characters are more likely to stay alive for longer. So here I'm just going to drop a Bellow, a bit of stress being dealt, and this is so unbelievably close. I'm just waiting for the Highman Corpse to go away, because once the Highman Corpse does go away, she will no longer have rejuvenating vapors, but she actually gets a crit on it, which gives her a stress heal at the same time, so you know, that's fair. So she's only doing 3 stress on the festering vapors, which is really nothing, and I just have to keep my man at arms alive here. So I will drop her a claim at this point to make sure that he has a lot of healing on that region, make sure that he stays alive for as long as possible. So here the Crusader is selfish. He's probably going to go for a Zealous here. It is going to do some stress to my man at arms, hopefully not too much. Gets another crit on the Zealous, but this time does hit the man at arms as well, which does only 10 stress, which is really not a lot, but you know, it does add up. So I'm just gonna click the man at arms here. Another Zealous would have brought me down to 0 HP because of the heart attack, but if he did go for it, I would just click the flagellant, and that would actually heal the man at arms out of the store, so I could potentially stay alive after that happened. And if I got death blowed by the Antiquarian, I could have still just healed because of the death blow on the flagellant. The flagellant heals the other characters when he dies. No, that's not actually right. The other characters heal themselves after the flagellant dies, so you can't use Quantum Absolution heal for it. So here I'm thinking, I could go Suffer or I could go Reclaim, and I just end up deciding on the Suffer because, you know, I probably want to give myself as much of a chance of surviving the death blow as possible. So there's a Battle debuff here, there's a heart attack recovery, and there's a rational, so I'm really hoping there isn't enough damage, and sure enough there wasn't. It was 0 on the flagellant, 1 on the man at arms. Both have the same amount of protection. It's really weird how that works, right? So I just go for another action, my Flagellant here. Just drop a Reclaim on the Man-at-Arms, make sure he has as many heals as he could possibly ever want. And the Antiquarian might just get the death blow here. She's gonna go for it, and she does indeed get it. My Man-at-Arms is now the last character standing, which does give me accuracy, so that is quite good. He is fearful, by the way. We haven't gotten a single Man-at-Arms pass. Not yet, at least. But I drop a bell here, and that is going to be 2 heart attacks onto my opponent's side. Now, here's the biggest problem. Crusader has Rally to the Flame. Rally to the Flame heals both characters, gets them out of that store, and they'll both have heart attack recovery. However, we get another Selfish Pass, which makes it so the Crusader doesn't have its immediate action, so I can drop another Bellow here. So now my opponent is 1 Bellow away from dying. So the Crusader could pass with the Selfish, doesn't. The Irrational could say no, and she does say no, which is really freaking good for me. So he goes for the Zealous. He's gonna make me have a heart attack though. So my Man-at-Arms is in a really rough spot as well. I am praying that this Antiquarian doesn't actually hit me for enough. Does 0 damage with the Festering Vapors, but she actually has a pass here. I regen myself out of the store, giving me the accuracy I need to hit both these characters, and I heart attack them both to death, and I take the match by round 19 against Nani 245. So a very exciting match. My Man-at-Arms just hanging on by a thread. He would be dead to another Zealous. He would have probably died to a Festering Vapors crit. Just so unbelievably close. An amazing match played by Nani, and thank you very much for playing. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you stayed around to the end. Hope it was as exciting as I promised it to be, and have a good day, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed it. Cheers.